DC has not exactly been doing too hot lately when it comes to their feature films. Black Adam was a mediocre flop. Shazam 2 unceremoniously came and went. The Flash became Warner Bros.' biggest financial failure in the studio's history. So when going into Blue Beetle, I knew it wasn't going to be the next big hit DC really needed, but I was hoping for it to be a good and decent blockbuster overall. And while it was just that, it was also very generic and extremely safe. Now, I want to get this out of the way. I liked Blue Beetle. I thought it was a very enjoyable film. However, as much as I would like to look at this in a vacuum by itself, the amount of other superhero projects that have been constantly coming out do unfortunately make Blue Beetle not look as good as it rightfully should. Starting off, Blue Beetle's story is one that most people will be all too familiar with. It's about a normal guy looking to help his family who accidentally comes into contact with an alien weapon that turns him into a superhero, while an evil corporation hunts him down. And that's it. There really isn't that much to the story beyond what I just described. The whole movie goes through the paces you'd expect and doesn't do anything to shake up the plot. On one hand, it is nice to have a plot that isn't all over the place dealing with complicated story elements and stuff. I mean, God knows that we're all probably sick of the multiverse stuff Marvel has been doing. But on the other hand, everything the plot does has already been done and much better in other films. But the thing that does save the story for me, though, are the characters, mainly Jaime and his family. The movie is all about family, and works the story around that theme, and it does it pretty well. I loved seeing the love everyone has for each other, and how they felt like a genuine caring family. Small scenes like the one with Jaime talking with his dad are really nice, since the film takes its time to make you feel for him and the people he cares for. I liked the family as a whole. They all had really nice moments like the one I just mentioned, and support one another throughout the film, especially George Lopez's character, who was the comedic relief of the film, but made me laugh pretty much every time he cracked a joke. And the main character himself was great. I loved Jaime. I thought he was an incredibly strong protagonist. He was likable, badass, and really sweet. The movie got me to root for him extremely quickly. In a way, he felt like DC's Spider-Man, a young, easy to root for kid who's relatable and is just a good-natured person who also happens to be bug-themed. Unfortunately, even though I can say that the main character is strong, the same can't be said for the villains, who are extremely weak. They are the dictionary definition of generic, down to even some of the lines they have. I'm not joking when I say the movie legitimately uses the "your family makes you weak" line.
That love you feel for your family makes you weak.
And it's that kind of stuff that took me right out of the movie with just how much I eye-rolled at it. The main villain is an evil business lady, who's an evil business lady because she wants more money and that's all her character is. You've seen this type of villain before. She's supposed to be related to one of the protagonists, but the film never delves any deeper into the relationship those two should have or the backstory the film hints to at multiple times. There's also this guy who also ends up just being another generic tough guy for the hero to fight in the end. However, he at least has a pretty tragic backstory that's hinted to throughout the entire film, but it's not revealed until after the final battle, which really takes away from the emotional presence it should have had with the proper writing and build-up, of course. But moving away from the characters, the most surprising thing about this movie, and when I say surprising, I really do mean surprising, is that it looks extremely good. The film was originally intended to be a straight-to-streaming movie, but was quickly switched over to becoming a theatrical release. With that information, it makes this movie seem a little more impressive. For like 95% of the film, you really wouldn't be able to tell that this was supposed to be a streaming movie. It also makes a lot of recent superhero movie releases look even worse by comparison. There are a couple of moments throughout the film, though, where the CGI can be a little wonky looking, and some shots can have a bit of a made-for-TV look, but with this having a budget of only $100 million, I'm extremely impressed with how the budget was utilized here. However, just because the budget seemed to be utilized very well, and makes this whole thing look really good, there's still issues. The thing that frustrates me most about this movie is the fact that small moments throughout it showed that it could have been more than what it was. Some of the third act incorporated some wacky stuff that I thought was fun to watch, but a larger portion of it was very boring and unengaging. The secondary villain could have been really interesting, but goes through 90% of the film as a boring tough guy, until the very end where we then find out about his tragic backstory, on top of having to be paired with such a boring, uninteresting primary villain. The powers of the Scarab are super cool, being able to create anything the user can imagine, but are really underutilized and are only used to create blasters and swords. During some of the action scenes, there were some really cool camera movements along with some well done choreography, but there's not much of that kind of stuff throughout the film, and the final battle just devolves into just two people in armored mech suits just punching each other. Iron Man did this same thing in 2008, and it was the weakest part of that film. The fact that stuff like this is still being done is kind of idiotic, but the thing that stands out most to me is the fact that the superhero stuff in the movie was less interesting and not as engaging as the family aspect of the film. I was more interested with the family stuff because it seemed as though there was more of an effort put into making them likable, relatable, and the core of the film. Most of my problems are with the superhero stuff, which unfortunately impacts the family aspect to some extent, like how Jaime is against killing throughout the film, and it's even driven home in the final battle that he is not a killer and that killing is wrong, but then we see his family have no problem dropping bodies. His grandma straight up mows down like 8 dudes with no hesitation, but Jaime doesn't want to kill people, and it ends up putting his family in a dangerous situation at one point in the film. And that's where the movie struggles. It's the characters and family elements that are really good, but when it has to go back to being a superhero movie, then the film falters. It was difficult writing a review for this movie because of how generic it was. While the film didn't do anything particularly bad, it also didn't do anything very well. The movie was played extremely safe, to the point where it almost had no identity of its own. It utilizes a lot of worn out tropes and cliches that have been present in a lot of superhero movies as of recent, which hurt this one. But unlike other more recent origin movies like Black Adam, let's say, which felt kind of soulless and just made to boost The Rock's ego more than anything else, Blue Beetle feels like it came from a place of genuine passion. You feel the love the people making this movie had for the character, and it was that feeling of love that makes me enjoy this more than DC and some of Marvel's previous films. I'd 100% rather watch this again than sit through Black Adam, Shazam 2, or The Flash for a second time. It's just the writing that needs to be worked on. Characters and how they're written are fine for the most part. There just needs to be a better plot with more compelling villains and a more interesting superhero angle next time. There is potential in Blue Beetle as a character. It just felt as though the movie didn't take full advantage of that. So hopefully, if there is a sequel or some other future project with him, the filmmakers really do more with him and try new things, rather than rely on old cliches. I want to see more of Jaime, whether it be in team-up movies or just as a cameo. I can't get over the potential he still has, because the character still has a ton to offer. But without anything else to add, I'm going to be nice to Blue Beetle and give it a 6 out of 10. Originally it was a 5, but it's a little better than I originally thought.